Looking back, what would you say has been your biggest disappointment at JPMorgan Chase, and what did you learn from it?
People would probably point out the whale. We lost billions of dollars in this terrible idiotic trading thing. And I was, of course, heavily criticized, legitimately. And of course, at one point, someone asked me on an analyst call, is it just a tempest in a teapot? I said, yes. But at that moment, I didn't know how bad it was. I had been told something which was not accurate. And I remember coming back late one night. I said, I want to see the actual positions, the actual what ifs, the actual stuff, reading the stuff. And my heart stopped when I realized what we had done. And I immediately got on a call with analysts and said, we've lost $2 billion. We're going to lose more. It was badly managed, a bad strategy, badly reported, badly done. It's my fault, and I'm sorry. It is something that had gotten away, wasn't properly reported, which I won't go into. But I do remember, but again, I don't consider that my worst moment. It was just terrible. And I actually got all the PR people and communications people together, the manager, and said, you know what? They're going to crucify me. They're going to crucify our company. I said, forget that. We're going to lose some money. We've got clients around the world. When we wake up tomorrow, we're going to serve our clients around the world. And I remember driving in the next day. I was very early, like 6:30, when they called me up and said, Jamie, all the TV cameras are out there and all the newspapers, and go into the basement so you can avoid them. I was, okay. And the closer I'm getting to the building, I'm saying, wait a second. Why? I'm not going to do that. So I got out of the car. They all come running up to me, and they say, what are you going to do? You're going to lose your job. And I said, we're going to fix this problem. I looked up the building. I said, but I want you to know how proud I am of the 7,000 people in this building serving their clients around the world every day and the great job they do. And that's how I felt. That was like a stupid problem. It wasn't, but I've learned so many lessons, look, you've been part of it, how to run meetings and how to notice politicians. But the biggest mistakes are always the same. People. When you put the wrong people in the job, that means that it takes a while to figure it out. Bullshitters are pretty good at it. They've been bullshitting for 25 years. The people who reports them are going to be hurt. The company won't do a good job. It takes you a while to figure out to replace them. And you get better at that. You just get better at that over time. You see the pattern recognition. Are they respected? Are they treated? Are they honest? As opposed to, are they the best chest pounder and the best salesman and they work their ass off and things which may be important, but that doesn't mean they're a good leader.
So the whale was what everybody would go to. When you look at it, what was your biggest disappointment then? The whale was an event. You knew you could get over it. Did you have one bigger than that, or was this?
Yeah, there was. I would say there's some people ones. I don't want to mention their names because I think it's very important you're not shit all over people that I missed. There was one at Bank One who you might remember, and I missed it. And I remember my management team coming in, and it was late at night. They said, 4 guys, which I think this is fine, but most people would allow this. 4 of them said, Jamie, sit down. I said, okay. They said, we're going to tell you something. Don't say anything. Just listen. I said, okay. And they proceeded to tell me how this person we had hired running this part of the business was a bad guy, a liar, dishonest, said things and did things. And I listened and I didn't know. And I did, and sometimes you can't tell people. So what I said to him is, I hear you. With the smoke, there's fire. Thank you for saying this to me. It's now my problem. And they were right. And then there were a couple of ones at the JPMorgan Chase where I made the decision. I hired that person in Bank One, where I made the decision. I missed it, or I took too long. And I hate it when I make a change and people say, "Thank God you did that." I always say to them, "Well, why didn't you let me know earlier?" I mean, you may be the boss, but I love reading history and I love reading some military history, and you see the same thing where there are bad generals.
Ron Daniel, who ran McKinsey, always said, David, you said you're going to learn, and you learned this. It sounds like it's your biggest, disappointment. Is he said, the business will always run. Okay? And your results will vary, but the thing that'll disappoint you the most are the people that you put your trust in. So I think that's basically what you're saying here. I know many people have asked you to run for president. I even told you once, I remember we were having dinner at some Greek restaurant. I said, I will quit whatever I'm doing right now. I'll be your campaign manager. I'll do whatever you want, but we need you to run for president. what have you learned about yourself that's kept you from jumping into that briar patch?
I'm not sure I learned a lot about myself, but I do think there are skills that people have that in business world that may translate to the political world. But I think it's a mistake to automatically think that's true. So I think working hard, being authentic, having leadership skills is true, but there are also these political skills, and you've seen a lot of business people run that fail immediately. And I may be better than them, but I still don't necessarily have all those political skills. That's one. The second is I literally think you should kind of have a warm up before you go for president. And a warm up, could be Congress or Senate or governor. You've seen people learn those skills before you go for the big enchilada. I know the world from this position I have, so I think that's important. But I would have had to start earlier. And I also have this unbelievable, unlike some other people, I have this unbelievable job. I think, my country's right next to my family is my country. And this company, I'm just so proud of what it does for 80,000 Americans, 6,000 American companies around the world, our markets, cities, schools, states, hospitals, the community outreach program we have. I'm damn proud of it. So I think I add a lot here. I'd be giving it up for kind of a wild goose chase. I tell people, had I run and won, when I was walking into that White House, I'd be waving goodbye to my family for 4 years. They'd be saying, "See you, Dad." I'm not sure. I'm not sure my wife would have gone with me there. And so and it is subjecting your family to some very tough stuff. And some people are prepared for that. I was unprepared for it at the time, and so I would never rule it out. I mean, I don't like making promises. People are you promise? I'm not making any promise to anyone. If I change my mind, I change my mind. But I think it's hard. I'm 68 years old. As you know, I've had a health problem or two. So when you put it together, it just didn't seem like the right thing for me to do.
And you've traveled the world, and JPMorgan Chase has such global impact, as you mentioned. And as you've met global leaders, and you've met the top leaders in the world, who, if you had to pick out one person, who's impressed you the most and why?
There are several. I mean, several are terrible, and I'm not going to give you their names. And these may surprise you a little bit. Macron. Very smart, very tough, says the same things publicly as privately. Very complicated politics. You could say he made some right decisions, wrong decisions, has the right vision for France, getting entrepreneurs, business growing, stuff like that. The guy at Greece was a basket case. The guy who runs Greece, Mitsotakis, has done an unbelievable job. And he would tell you, basically I figured out what policies we needed, and then I did the politics, whereas most politicians do it their way around. It's all about politics, and they try to fit the policies into what they promised, which, policies badly done don't work. And so, and then a lot of them from history. I've been reading a lot about Ike Eisenhower, just the competence of the man. He surrounds himself with great people. Everyone spoke up. There was no game plan. He got rid of all the policies. He was able to deal with all the complexities. And George Marshall. So I get a lot of inspiration from people not just existing. Ulysses S. Grant. They write him up as a drunkard. He was extraordinary. But as president, at one point, the Ku Klux Klan comes back in, I think it was Mississippi. And you see this guy, the principled ethics, he said, the black people, they weren't called blacks at the time, are citizens of this country, and they're going to be treated with all the same rights as everybody else. And he sent, I think it was Sherman or Sheridan down with troops to remove the governor. There was no prevaricating. There's no game plan. There's no, if it's bad. It was terrible politics if you wanted to win the southern states. And so there are a lot of people, Abe Lincoln, Nelson Mandela, that you just learn from watching what they do and how they handled difficult situations, difficult people.
As you think about, the situation that the world faces today, it's very complicated. It's a very scary world we live in today. Describe the world you see 5 to 10 years from now. You think we're going to be in this for a long, long time, or, the China relationship, how do you see the world? And there was a time when, the global economy was everything, and China needed us and we needed China, everything seems to be, on very shifting sand. How do you look at it, and how should we think about it?
It is really complex. And I think the way I look at it is it's Russia-Ukraine war. It's the aiding and abetting of Iran and North Korea of what's happening in Ukraine. It's Iran's nuclear program. It's the terrorism in the Middle East against Israel, and then India, and then China's part in that. Kind of not with it, they're not part of the evil part, but they're aiding and abetting it with microelectronics and buying oil and gas and all these various things. It's dangerous. And you're talking about, this is not the economy I'm worried about. This is the future of freedom and democracy in the world. And the only way to deal with something like this, if you read history, is deal with it. Don't just pray it goes away. It may not go away. When this war started, I told people that's almost on 3 years. And you're talking about Iran being very close to have a nuclear weapon. China is trying to divide the Western world by quite openly. They're saying it, well, we don't want the American system to prevail, and we don't want the reserve currency, and we want every country not to be part of the American economic system. And I think the public should understand that the military alliance we have and the economic alliances are very deeply related. And our national power is based upon our moral power, our economic power, in addition to our military power. And the moral power is still real. We have the greatest country on the planet, the freedom of speech and freedom of religion and freedom of enterprise. Those freedoms, if you took down our barriers, the immigration, 4 billion people move here because they want those freedoms. And then they'd invent companies. And I think Americans underestimate the power of that. Yes, we've had flaws of a country and we should focus on some of that, but we shouldn't denigrate this is a shining light, a shining city on the hill. And so to conquer these things, you need to make sure America stays strong. So America, when I talk about China, we have all the foodborne and energy we need. We have peace in North America and South America. We got the Atlantic and the Pacific. In China, our GDP per person is $80,000. Theirs is 15. They import 10 million barrels of oil a day. They've got terrible demographics, and their neighborhood is a very complicated area. They're surrounded by people who've been enemies in the past, and they're pissing them all off. Not because anything America's done, by the way, but the Philippines, Japan, Taiwan, Indonesia, Vietnam, Korea, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Russia. It's a tough part of the world, and they're kind of hemmed in. And so we have the better hand. The question to me I worry about is we need to play that hand. If only American leadership can keep the world free and safe for democracy. Only American leadership. And we've got to keep together the military and the economic alliance, because the economic battlefield, and these are directly related, is about national security. Like, where do we get our penicillin from, and where do we get our graphite from, and where do we get our rare earths from, and stuff like that. But it's also about unfair economic competition, because that becomes beggar thy neighbor. And you have Europe in a very tough spot now because they have very high energy costs. We have very low energy costs, so it makes it very hard for the industry. And then China can sink their car companies. So you have a very complex situation.